See, Pogie is free. He's going over to say hello to those dogs that are telling him not to come over and say hello. But he's a big dog. But he's free. I mean, we love Pogie. We've had him fixed, and we've had him... we've had his rabies shots, and we had him wormed, and we had all sorts of other stuff. He had mange when we first got him, a little. And so we've actually spent an unusual amount of money on him. Look at him, he's a joyful thing. Tiger! Tiger, come on! Come on, Tiger! I can just barely see Tiger down there. But if he doesn't want to come, he'll go home. That's what we call the secret house in the mountains, with these beautiful views in every direction. So Pogie's been and made a fuss up there, and now he's coming back. Now this here, maybe I should take you this way for a change. This is the way that we used to come. This was the path as it used to be, all the way up to the house, right up to the house. And we used to do this on the motorcycle. Now, come on, Pogie. There's no need to call him. When he's ready, he'll come, and if not, he'll go home. So we used to do this on the bike, which, when you haven't been on a bike for too many years, and it's a dirt bike, a 150, which actually is certainly large enough to get you into trouble. It has a high center of gravity, and on a path like this, in the parts where it goes off, see, if you look here, there's the path, and hardly a foot there, there's nothing. It's just going down, and it's going right down the hill. Look, quite steep. Now, if you get stopped here, you put your foot down, there's nothing there. So you end up dropping the bike and scrambling. Oops. And scrambling to save yourself. There's nothing you can do. And this has got all kinds of ridges off to the side. Ridges hold. When we first bought the bike, we bought a brand new dirt bike, and we came home on it. On the road, of course, it's fine. It doesn't take any great skill to ride on a perfectly civilized road to go home, especially if the end of your drive comes from that perfectly civilized road. Well, then you're fine. But if at some point you have to leave that civilized road and start on something like this, then it gets different. And it was so different. If you look, it was so different that I ended up dropping the bike no less than 3 times. Here you've got to make serious choices. Your choice is, do you get in that rut or not? And if you get in that rut, and the rut wants you to go one way and your sense of balance tells you to go another, then there's a bad disagreement. Now this road, as it is now, this path, this was forged later by brave younger Filipinos who were not afraid of driving on any kind of surface. Now prior to that, this was the old road, which that could be very tricky because it was rocky, it was uncertain, especially in the rain. Very difficult. Well, and finally somebody said there must be a better way. I guess they walked it first. That's what I did. Beth said there's another path there, but the usual thing was to walk it, and I walked it and looked at how I could do it, and I did it. But the penalty is severe. Look, if you're on a bike and you did have to lay the bike down, it's severe. The problem is that these pathways are walked by kids, and kids, especially mischievous boys, if they put a rock, like if this is your, see where the tire mark is, if this is your route that you take, this is your line on this path, then you'll do that every time. You'll take the same path every time. Now if they put a rock, and even worse if they put three, if they put 1 and 2 and 3, just small rocks, it can have you off the bike. And if that's on one side, it's not something that you want to do. Well, it looks like we lost Tiger. Tiger decided he'd had enough. And decided to go home. Now this was one where you had 2 paths that you could take. This is a slightly steeper one. Hello.
Hi.
That's Maricel. She is BB's mum. And she's carrying her stuff from the market or wherever she has bought that stuff, and she's carrying that in the traditional way on the head. Now this path brings back some bittersweet memories. This is the path that takes us to Nisa's house, and this here is Nisa's house. That's the house that we built. We built that house for her. And this house here is the house that Nisa's older brother lives in. This, or is it her younger brother, her bigger brother, let's say. And Nisa was living in that house too. There's no door on there, on what Nana would call the cellar. and no door. Now that doesn't meet the criteria of a house that's being lived in, because there's no laundry. There's no laundry on the line. so it is very basic. And there's a house being built there. So this takes us, one way takes us to what has been called Gideon's, because it's the house of Gideon that is closest to the end of that road there, that path. And then this one takes us, come on, this one takes us to the Carabao pool. And here's some neighbours. ¿Cómo está? Hi. Now that tells you how little rain we've had lately. Look, this normally is full to overflowing, enough to promise a very nasty lesson if you went off your bike there. So I'll walk a little further and give those two people space to get clear, and then we'll turn around and go back. I will show you one thing to close this video that's of interest. This little house here was always an unfinished house, and it seemed like it was a house that had great promise. It was built and a family lived in this house, and you can see that it's on a little cleared hilltop and has some mango trees. It's obviously owned and cared for, but now gone a little to ruin. This tree wasn't here the last time I came, but it's now falling to ruin. And what happened with this house, it's very strange. When you're married to a Filipino there and you ask a question, sometimes they'll say, I don't know. And then later, maybe weeks or months later, you may ask the same question again and they'll know. And I don't know why that is. It's just one of the mysteries of being married to a Filipino. A different way of thinking. Very much different way of thinking. It's different wiring, I think. Now I asked her what the story was on this, and she said, I don't know. And then it turns out that she told me that it was lived in by a family who were paid a very modest amount of money, plus being able to live in this house. And they were supposed to look after cattle, either carabao or possibly cows. I think it was possibly cows. I'm going to risk life and limb here and go in and show you. Now you can see here these pieces of glass. That's why I said at one time it was to be a nice house. That was going to be the louvered windows, the jealousy windows. It was going to actually have glass instead of a panel. And there's a centre post that the Superman team always try to put in every house that I have to argue against. I'm just looking up. So it actually has an upstairs. and one floorboard is left. Now you can see that it used to have floorboards because there are the nails, and it would have looked out onto a beautiful scene. Look at that, especially back then because these trees were not so tall. And there it is. Now I think what happened was that whoever had said that he would pay them didn't, and they stayed and stayed in the hope, as we do when we have a job that quits paying, and they stayed in the hope that they would get their back pay, and they didn't. So I'm going to take a guess and say that when they left, they took as much with them that was of value, that would help them in setting up at the next place, as they could. So that's why you only see a skeleton. But you can see that it was rendered at one point with a staircase, with an upstairs, with a little balcony there that's open. And this would have actually been a pretty nice house. Tiny, of course, but it would have been nice. In a beautiful place, right next to the pathway. What more could you want? Well, apparently they wanted to be paid as well. So that was the more that they could want. And they couldn't live here, so they left. But all of this nice area out the front, and all the surrounding area too, because these trees are planted in rows. This is a plantation. Nice tree out the front. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, well, I won't burden you with the walk back. It's the same again on the walk back. Actually, it's not the same again. The walk is never the same, going backwards and forwards. You're looking in a different area, in a different way, and somehow it always remains interesting. But Pogie and I will head back now. Thank you for being with us, keeping us company, and we'll be back on another occasion, another walk. This is close to sunset, but if I get even a moderate move on, the sun is still high enough up in the sky that I'll make it before dark, which is always a nice thing. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for being with me, and don't forget to like, and if you can, comment and subscribe. And if you are an OFW working far from home and all of this looks so familiar, well, I wish you an early homecoming. Bye for now.